Chris Watkin, joined again by Matt Goddard, and we're here to talk about the 6 problems that letting agents have with their client accounts. Matt, you've been big in the game, worked for some massive software firms. Where do letting agents go wrong with their client accounts? Talk to me.
I think there's an element of fear around the client accounts, but also basic lack of understanding around what it is. The name should really give it away. It's client money, so therefore you can't pay your wages out of it. You can't buy yourself. You can't go and buy yourself a new car. You can't use the money for a rainy day fund. It is your client's money. You should be able to know at any point in time whose money you're holding and for what.
So that's the first one. What's the second?
The second one is making sure that you know whose money it is. The Lettings Partnership do audits, if you're aware of them or not, the client accounting specialists. They do audits across a number of agencies in the UK. And about 40% of the companies they audit actually reconcile, which means the 60% don't. So that's a huge volume of what we've come to term within the repeat days as black holes, where you're trying to work out where that money has gone, what's it been used for, or on the flip side, a black mountain where suddenly you've got a load of extra cash and you don't know whose it is, and it's sat within your client accounts. So it's actually being able to stay on top of those things, do it daily, so you do know whose money you're dealing with, because at the end of the day, that is somebody's funds, and it's someone's livelihood that's on your account.
What's your third one?
Does technology really solve it? There's a lot of time people are looking for silver bullets in these things. They think, well, I've got a small portfolio, I don't need a client accountant, and that's fine. A client accountant ultimately is someone who follows a process, receives money and pays landlords and pays tax, etc. And so they start looking for technology. But what you really need to be able to do is be able to look at that client account and know that if Christopher Watkins walks in and he wants to know that you've still got his deposits, or he's waiting for his payment of rent that the tenant's already paid, that you've got that money in your client account and you can access it and pay it to that person, rather than having to wait and see whether or not the software shows you where that is.
Do you think plenty of agents do try and rely too much on tech to solve their client account issues?
I think there's a move towards that, and it does get concerning, but in the same way that there was a move a few years ago to outsourcing of the client accounts. Unfortunately, in the same way with tech, we hear horror stories about outsourcing where the companies might go bust and that money's gone missing, you don't know who it is. The key for me is always ignoring tech or process or operations. It's being able to use your client account, see it at any time, and know that the money sat in there, who it belongs to, because it's your client's money and you should be honouring your relationship with them.
What's the fourth?
There's a lot of latecomers to the industry, and people see that as sometimes a negative. As with the
What do you mean by latecomers?
So take Repeat, for example. I joined them back in 2012, and we were just launching the lettings and client accounting solution. And so you could look around the industry and say, actually, there's CFP who've been there since day dot. They were accredited by the ICAEW, the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England. They were robust, they were reputable, they were very solid in what they do, still are, very, very good system. And then there was different newcomers popping up and who maybe the money didn't consistently flow through the system. You wouldn't be able to say that's who it belongs to, that's the client who needs it, or if a landlord walks through the door and wants their payment, you won't be able to find that particular bit of money. And so there's always a concern that people coming late to the party, to coin a term used by one of my previous colleagues, that maybe they haven't got that robustness around them. But actually, sometimes people have come along, like Carmony, who've recently launched their digital account offering, have taken that opportunity to consider what they're doing as they launch their product. So it doesn't necessarily mean that newcomers are a bad thing, but as long as they understand the principles of do you know whose money it is, and have you got your own access to that money to be able to report on it and distribute it as and when necessary.
The next point?
The ICAEW, which was quite a large one, as we see the movement towards consumer money protection, and the big accrediting body that we've got, which is the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales. There's only 2 pieces of software out there that have actually gone through their rigorous processes to get that. And obviously I'm raising it because one of my first tasks at Repeat was I spent 3 days in a cold room with a huge amount of survey to complete, questionnaire to complete with the ICAEW, followed by an audit process to to get that accreditation for REPIT, but what it does mean is we know that the accounting process and principles that software adheres to are actually what is needed by the industry that's accredited it.
The one being CFP Winman.
Correct.
But surely the other CRMs would say, well, we don't need that to be compliant.
They could easily go through the process then, couldn't they?
Interesting. Thank you for those 6 points. They've been absolutely fascinating.
Thank you, Chris.